She said, "Don't wait for me," but I never learned how to stop. The transport ship hummed through the void between stars, and Lieutenant Maya Torres sat in the observation deck watching Earth shrink to nothing more than a blue marble against endless black, and she wondered if she would ever see home again, because 3 years was a long time to be away from everything familiar and everyone she loved. But the mission to establish contact with the Zenthari Empire was too important to refuse, and Maya had never been good at saying no to impossible tasks. The Zenthari were unlike anything humanity had encountered in their brief venture into the galaxy, and they were tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered in shades of violet and silver, and their eyes held depths that seemed to see through lies and pretense straight to the truth beneath. And when the first contact team had met them 2 years ago, the Zenthari had been polite but distant, and their leader had made it clear that humanity would need to prove itself worthy. Before any real alliance could form, Maya had studied everything available about Zenthari culture during the 6-month journey to their homeworld, and she learned that they valued strength but not the brutal kind, and they respected courage and honesty above all else. And they had a concept called Cathara, which roughly translated to soul recognition, and it was said that when a Zenthari found their Cathara, they would know it instantly and completely, and the bond was unbreakable. The ship docked at the orbital station above Zenthar Prime, and Maya gathered her things and tried to calm the nervous energy that made her hands shake slightly, because she was about to step into a world where everything was different and strange, and she was representing all of humanity in this cultural exchange program. And the weight of that responsibility sat heavy on her shoulders. Commander Vakira was waiting at the airlock, and she stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that gleamed like polished amethyst and silver markings that ran down her arms in intricate patterns, and her eyes were the color of deep space. And when she looked at Maya, something flickered in those eyes and her expression shifted, in a way Maya could not read. "Welcome to Zenthar Prime." Lieutenant Torres and Vakira spoke in flawless English, though her accent made the words sound like music. "And we are honored to host you for this exchange, and I will be your guide and liaison during your time here." Maya tried to respond with equal formality, but the words caught in her throat when Vakira's hand brushed hers as she gestured toward the transport platform, and the touch sent something like electricity through Maya's arm, and she saw Vakira's eyes widen slightly as if she had felt it too. The weeks that followed were a blur of cultural lessons and diplomatic functions, and Maya learned to navigate Zenthari customs, and she discovered that beneath their formal exterior, the Zenthari were passionate and fierce, and they loved with an intensity that terrified her. Because it was so absolute and complete, Vakira was her constant companion, and the commander showed her the crystal gardens where light bent into impossible colors, and the great libraries where knowledge from 1,000 worlds was preserved, and they talked late into the night about philosophy and war and the nature of connection, and Maya found herself drawn to Vakira in ways she had not expected and did not fully understand. One evening, Vakira took Maya to a cliff overlooking the capital city, and the sun was setting in shades of purple and gold, and the air smelled of something sweet and alien, and Vakira stood close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "You feel it too?" And Vakira said quietly, and it was not a question. Maya wanted to deny it, but she had never been good at lying, and yes, she admitted. "And I do not know what it is." Cathara and Vakira turned to face her, and her eyes were intense and searching in soul recognition. "And I knew the moment I saw you, but I did not want to believe it, because you are human, and this should not be possible." Maya felt her heart racing because she understood what Vakira was saying, and she had read enough to know that Cathara was sacred to the Zenthari, and it was the foundation of their deepest bonds, and the idea that she could share that with someone from another species entirely was overwhelming. "What does this mean?" and Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Vakira reached out and gently touched Maya's face, and her fingers were warm and careful. "And it means that when your mission ends and you return to Earth, I will feel the absence of you like a wound that never heals, and it means that I cannot ask you to stay because that would be selfish, and your people need you." Maya leaned into the touch and closed her eyes. "And what if I want to stay? Your life is on Earth, and," Vakira said, and her voice held a sadness that made Maya's chest ache, "and you have family and friends and a career, and I will not be the reason you lose all of that." The months passed too quickly. and Maya and Vakira grew closer despite knowing that their time was limited and they shared everything. And Maya learned the Xanthari language and Vakira learned about human customs. And they found that despite their differences, they understood each other in ways that went beyond words. Maya met other Xanthari and she formed friendships, and she began to see that humanity and the Xanthari were not so different after all. And both species wanted peace and understanding, and both feared the unknown, and both loved fiercely when they allowed themselves. The diplomatic mission was a success, and trade agreements were signed, and cultural exchange programs were established, and Maya received a commendation for her work and orders to return to Earth. And she should have been proud, but all she felt was the approaching end of something precious. The night before her departure, Vakira came to her quarters and her usual composure was cracked, and Maya could see the pain in her eyes. "Stay." And Vakira said, and the word came out desperate and broken, "And I know I said I would not ask, but I am asking now, and stay with me. And we will find a way to make this work." Maya wanted to say yes more than she had ever wanted anything, but she thought of her mother back on Earth and her little brother who looked up to her and the career she had worked so hard to build, and how could she throw all of that away for someone she had known for less than a year? No matter how right it felt, "I cannot." And Maya whispered, and the words felt like they were tearing something inside her, "And I want to, but I have responsibilities and people who depend on me, and I cannot just abandon them." "Then go," and Vakira said, and her voice was steady now, though her eyes were bright with unshed tears, "and go back to Earth, and live your life, and do not wait for me, and do not put your life on hold for something that can never be." Maya left the next morning, and the journey back to Earth took 6 months, just like the journey out, but every day felt like an eternity, and she threw herself into writing reports and analyzing data, and anything that would keep her mind occupied and away from the memory of violet eyes and gentle hands. Earth was exactly as she had left it, and her family welcomed her home with joy and relief, and her career flourished because of her successful mission, and she was promoted and given new responsibilities, and everyone told her how proud they were and how much she had accomplished. But at night Maya dreamed of crystal gardens and purple sunsets and a voice like music saying, "Do not wait for me." And she tried to move on, and she went on dates, and she threw herself into her work, and she told herself that what she felt for Vakira had been just the intensity of being in a foreign place. And nothing more. 2 years passed, and Maya became a leading expert on Xanthari culture, and she advised on diplomatic matters, and she trained new officers being sent to Xanthar Prime, and she heard news of Vakira sometimes, and learned that the commander had been promoted and was now overseeing multiple cultural exchange programs, and Maya told herself she was happy for her. Then one day a message arrived, and it was marked urgent and classified, and Maya opened it with shaking hands, and it was from the Xanthari Council, and they were requesting that she return to Xanthar Prime as the permanent human ambassador, and the message said that Commander Vakira had specifically recommended her for the position. Maya stared at the message for a long time, and she thought about what permanent meant, and it meant leaving Earth for good, and it meant building a life in a place that would always be foreign and strange, and it meant taking a chance on something that terrified her. She thought about Vakira's last words, "And do not wait for me," and she realized that Vakira had never asked her to wait and had never asked her to come back. But here was an opportunity that had nothing to do with their personal connection, and everything to do with Maya's skills and dedication. Maya accepted the position, and she said goodbye to her family, and her mother cried, but told her she understood, and her brother made her promise to send messages, and 3 months later she was back on Xanthar Prime, and her heart was pounding as she stepped off the transport. Vakira was not there to meet her, and Maya tried not to feel disappointed, because of course Vakira would not be there. And it had been 2 years, and Vakira had probably moved on and found someone else, and Maya had no right to expect anything. The first weeks were busy with settling into her new role, and meeting with officials and establishing the permanent embassy, and Maya threw herself into the work and tried not to scan every room she entered looking for a familiar face. Then one evening there was a knock on her door, and Maya opened it, and Vakira stood there, and she looked exactly the same and completely different, and her eyes held the